Good afternoon. Welcome back to our little workshop. Looks like some folks are streaming in here. We'll give people a couple of minutes, but once again, thank you for sharing your time with me. I look forward to these every time they're upcoming. Haven't been doing a whole lot of work otherwise. I've got one client that I'm doing some consulting for. God bless them. Another client, I had them basically tell me they can't pay me. So that was fun. But what are you going to do? I mean, can't blame the guy. He's paid me up to then. Got another class, paying class coming up. So that's good. So the world hasn't completely stopped. Hopefully you guys are all working as well. If you're not, just batten down the hatches. We'll figure something out here shortly, I'm sure. I signed up for the Small Business Administration loan today. I don't know if you guys saw that was available. Probably if you own a business, you have. Hurry up and sign up because that's first come, first serve in the States. Anybody, we didn't have any homework, I don't think. I'll give folks another moment to stream in. Anybody have any questions before we get started? If you didn't know, I do have the recordings on my YouTube channel. Does anybody need the link in chat?
That would be great to go ahead and share that, Ryan.
Yeah, let me get it for you. You know, it's funny how life works. I'd always planned on doing this. When I started my company, I thought, I'm going to create all kinds of content. And then in reality, that just never happened because there was always something else going on. So this has allowed me, obviously, lots of time. But here we go. So I think I can share here. No. Where's the share button on here? Can I just share this? I think it's just this. Let's see if this works. Make a link out of it. I could have swore there was a way to share this thing. It was on my phone anyway. Does that work? You just copy and paste.
Yeah, it's working, Ryan.
Okay, cool. So if you just subscribe, they're all on here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're currently on the 5th iteration here. Looks like we're hanging in right around 12 people. So the attrition rate was pretty bad initially, but hopefully people are still going to go and watch the videos. Okay. So I think we were on security, right? Let me get my pen out here. Where did you go, pen? Bless you. There, no. Sorry, guys. I'm usually a little more prepared. There we are. All right. So, I believe we've gotten all the way to profile. Let's do a review. So what's the first thing we're always going to check?
Profile.
Well, you always want to check the owner of the record, right? Because what's the ownership give us? That's our full access, which gave us view, edit, share, transfer, and delete. Does that mean that the user will be able to do all of this? Does full access mean they can actually do anything?
Nope.
It just means they have the ability to do something if their profile allows it, right? So we had access and permission. And the hard part is determining the difference sometimes. So if you don't own the record, what do you get? What do you got to check then? If you own the record, or if you don't own the record, the OWD settings, our organization-wide default settings, are going to be what tells us the level of access that we have. So if they're set to private, what does that mean?
It's only you can see your own records.
Owner gets full. Everybody else gets none. What about public read only? Owner gets full. Everybody else gets read only. Public read write. Owner gets full. Everybody else gets read and edit. Can they share?
No, not in Lightning.
Well, could they, if they own, if they don't have full access, can they share?
No.
No. And technically you can do it in Lightning now. You have to upload an app from the App Exchange. There's a share action that you can upload from the App Exchange. If that was a limitation of Lightning, that they didn't have manually shared. They didn't have the manual share option. So a lot of companies couldn't make the switch. But now there's an action you can upload from the App Exchange. Public read write transfer means it's public read write. So they have read, edit, and transfer. What are we transferring?
You're transferring the records.
You're
Full access.
transferring ownership, right? So you're really, what are you transferring?
Their access.
Access. Very good. So then if I get here and they're not getting any access this way, so they're set to private, so there's no access here, what do I check next to ensure they have access to the record in the first place?
Role hierarchy.
It's the role hierarchy. What's the role hierarchy? Role hierarchy overrides OWDs using a system of roles and subordinates. What's the highest level of access I can give?
Full access.
Full, and it passes it up the line. It's based on record ownership. So if the subordinate owns the record, they'll pass that full access, pass the ball up to anyone above them in the role hierarchy. And it's like, it's a vertical motion. There's no horizontal movement. It's also a template that can be assigned to a user or a group of users. The reason I bring this up is, number one, it is a template where multiple users can have the same role. But also, when you look at a test question and you see a group of users of any kind, I'm immediately thinking, all right, are we talking about roles or profiles? What am I really asking there? Access or permission. So that's a good keyword for you. If you see a group of users, you can determine whether it's access or permission from some other keyword in the test question. Usually, by the time I get here, they've got some level of access, either through record ownership or OWDs being set to public read write, or they're a role and a role subordinate relationship. If not, I have to go down here to sharing rules. I actually have it listed as number 5 because it's the last thing I want to deal with. They're no fun to deal with. So I try to avoid them if possible. So if I don't have any access, I got to get access somehow. And these are all additive. So you add them all up. So if you've got private, there's a role in the hierarchy and there's a sharing rule. So if you've got, let's see, you got no access and then you got read, write through the role. Let's say you got full through the role hierarchy. Full access to the role hierarchy. And then there's a sharing rule where you've got read only. What do you get? Well, you've got none plus full plus read only, which is full. See that? It's kind of additive, like a math problem. So I'm trying to get this side handled before we move on. If I get here and it's already handled, I can go right to what I call step 3. And what was this one?
Profile.
What's the profile do?
It gives permissions to objects.
That's one of the things that it does. I had a real short answer for this.
A group of users on the permission side. Oh wait, no, that's what a profile is. Thought I had the answer. Never
Oh, it
mind.
is a group of users. You're correct. That's part of it. It's a template that can be assigned to a user or a group of users,
Mhm.
just like the role hierarchy. So you weren't wrong. What I always say about the profile, it's what users can see and do with records they have access to. And then there were 2 ways to affect change on the profile. One is if you do hit the edit button. So if you go into that Salesforce org in your mind and you say, all right, when I go to the custom sales profile and I do hit the edit button, what's the first grouping of settings I can change?
Apps.
What's an app?
It's what you can see on the hamburger button.
Okay. We said in an earlier class that an app is a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement, right? In a perfect world, how many apps should a user have?
1.
1.
1, if possible. After app settings, what do we have?
Tab settings.
What's a tab?
Visual representation of object.
Visual representation of an object. What's default on mean?
It means you can see it and access it both from the app builder. I mean the
window.
window. Yeah.
Yeah, it's either in Classic, it was on the bar and in the area. So there was a little plus button. In Lightning, it's on the bar and also in the app launcher. Default off means what?
Means you can't see it on the bar in Lightning, but you can see it in the app launcher.
In the app launcher, that's correct. And then hidden means what?
It's completely hidden.
Nothing. Is it better to have more or less tabs?
Less.
Always, right? Less is always more. What do we have after our tab settings?
General user and admin permissions.
General user and administrative permissions. These are what I call the system permissions. There's a reason for this. System permissions or general user and administrative permissions, they're all those check boxes. And if you want to give somebody permission or a profile permission to do something with reports, it's on there in those check boxes. What were our super user permissions? Gold star, anybody remembers?
View all, modify all.
Very good. View all and modify all. If those 2 are checked in the system permissions, that means that the user has what?
Super user access.
Which is giving them
Everything.
Full access.
full access to everything regardless of other security settings. There's also in the object permissions view all, modify all that are object specific. You think I give this out very often?
No.
Absolutely not.
Who would you give that to, Ryan? What's a user?
You know, I never give this away.
Okay.
Because what you'll see is if you check both of those boxes, it like checks every other checkbox.
Got it.
Right? So they just have like everything. Now, I may give view all, modify all, and the object permissions, which are next on the list. What I'll do here is that's our create, read, edit, and delete permissions. And then they also have view all and modify all right next just for that one object. I might give that out if I have someone that I consider a delegated administrator. So if I go into sales, let's say I've got, 500 users. I cannot do enough as an admin to do everything that needs to be done in a 500 person org by myself. I have to delegate some of the permissions and give people the ability to do things. So what I'll do is I'll go to sales, for instance, and I'll find out who is there, who likes the platform, find somebody that's interested in learning more and doing more, and I will get them to become my delegated admin, and I might give them view all, modify all for all accounts, contacts, and ops. So if there's any issues, they can go in, see the records, make changes as needed. I might give them reporting functionality, teach them how to do reports, let them create list views. Those might be some reasons that I would give a delegated administrator extra permissions, because I want them to do some of my work for me, if possible. And I might do it per department if it's a big enough org. You have one delegated admin per department. That also scales you up. If the company grows, you have people that could potentially become administrators in the future. Does that answer your question? How do we feel about delete for users?
No.
Cannot delete.
Do we go over why? Did I discuss win rate?
No, you didn't discuss rate, I don't think.
All right. So win rate or close rate. What is this? Has anybody heard this terminology?
Yeah.
How would you calculate win rate or close rate percentage using Salesforce? Any thoughts?
By the opportunities that are won.
So you're
and
talking
closed.
about closed one
Mm-hmm.
over closed
Closed
one
loss.
plus closed lost.
Mm-hmm.
And that turns out to be a percentage, right? What if I see a salesperson that has a 95% close rate? Is that good?
Yeah. Is he entering the opportunities that he's losing?
Well, the layperson would look at this and say a 95% close rate means 95% of the time he gets a sale.
Right.
So the layperson would say, oh, yeah, that's great. But I'll tell you, it's impossible. Unless you're selling illicit drugs or something, you're not going to have a 95% close rate. So as an admin, when I see this, I immediately, my eyebrow starts going through the top of my head. Like, okay, how long they've been with the company? If it's been 2 months, maybe they're just very lucky. If it's been 2 years, there's a problem. So what do you think I'm going to check first?
Closed
Various
loss.
stages in the path of the opportunity. And as the percentages go up and down to see how that would impact that.
Well, you could. That's further down the road if this very glaring issue is not the problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if they have the ability to delete opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens
okay.
if they delete the closed lost ones?
Changes the percentage.
Do you see? So what I'll usually do then is I'll just fix the glitch. I'll just go and invariably when I'm talking, when this is happening, I'm dealing with a person that's probably been elusive and didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to use Salesforce in the first place. They're the best salesperson in the world. They know everything. They don't need these newfangled tools kind of person, right? So I know I'm going to plunge, right? I know I'm going to be plunging. So I remove the delete button, and invariably that person calls me. Hey, Ryan, how you doing, bud? Heard great things about you. Sorry, I've been so busy, haven't been able to get a hold of you. That person. We all know that person, right? Okay. Hey, Joe, how you doing? What can I do for you? Well, what happened to that? I can't delete opportunities anymore. Oh, well, Joe, we don't do that anymore. What is the desired outcome of an opportunity record?
To win it.
Well, it's desired outcome, but less finite than that. It's to just close it, right? One way or the other. We're going to lose way more than we win, right? So no, we don't do that anymore. And you could almost like feel them depressurize. You know, my 95% win rate is in. They think they're slick. But if you allow them to do some functionality, whose fault is it that the user does it?
Yeah.
The admin.
The admin who
It's
allows that
on
to
us,
happen.
isn't it? Absolutely 100% on us. So, you know, what would I do? Well, obviously they have some level of access because they can see the record. All I did was I just took away the delete permission in the object settings. See that? Now they'll have the access because they own it, but they don't have the permission. Okay, so where were we? I think we were at like app settings, tab, system,
Object.
object. And then there's the lesser important ones. Desktop integration client, I wouldn't even worry about it. Session settings have to do with when you time out if you sit on a session for too long. There's also login hours. Oh, password policies, excuse me. Login hours. I think login hours and IP ranges are when you do not hit edit. So I'll hold off on that. Session settings, password policies. So then there's also, if you do not hit edit, let me show you, I'll go in platform and we'll take a look. Okay. I don't think I've logged into Salesforce yet.
Ryan, while you're logging in, what is the desktop integration? What is it? What, is that like taking an app and installing it, or what does that mean?
I have no idea. I've
Oh,
never used
okay.
it for anything.
Okay. Cool.
You could help in training it. You're not going to get tested on it.
That's really my question,
Yeah, I
actually.
mean-
Am I going to get tested on it?
That's probably going to be advanced admin functionality, probably,
Got it.
as far as the test is concerned. Now, why isn't this just this slow? Wow, that's going to be a problem. Let's try this. There we go. Just hung up on me there for a second. All right. Let's see. No. See, any of you guys work in multiple orgs?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it do that? Does anybody know why it does that? It like redirects me to the wrong org.
The only time I've ever had it redirect me is because I was logged into that other org, but you said you hadn't logged in at all, right?
Well, maybe earlier today, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I found. I found if I'm messing around a lot of orgs, it'll kick it back to the first original org I was logged in, and then
Yeah,
gotta do the same thing you're
I once built an entire app in the wrong org.
doing.
Well, that's back when it was all classic. You know, classic was classic. All you had was page layout, unless you want to do Visual Force pages. They all looked exactly the same. The client called me up like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, well, I'm getting you all set up here." He's like, you know, I don't sell HVAC equipment." Oh, okay, sorry. I won't bill you for those hours. All right. Brutally slow. I find that if you don't have 16 gigs of RAM, it's almost unusable in screen sharing. Anyway, so users and then profiles. So we said, what happens if you do hit edit? And we had all of those options. And if you remember, we set Joe up. And then did everybody get Joe set up with that profile? And I believe we're still in Classic, right? Where we just had like, what, leads, accounts, contacts, and ops, I think.
I think we fixed Joe, so he wasn't in Classic.
Oh, did we? Okay, good. Did that on the profile. Sometimes I do that with a permission set. Just depends how I'm feeling. So if you do hit edit, we had starting with the app settings and so forth and so on. Everything we just discussed. There's our app settings, tab settings, default on, default off, tab hidden, administrative permissions, general user permissions, or that's what I call the system permissions. Here are our object permissions, create, read, edit, and delete. We set all those up. We have a nice streamlined, let's see. Choose whether users with this profile can use a client, update a client, see client update alerts, or be forced to update the latest version. So it must be email integration, something. For email, I usually use an app called Cirrus Insight, and it's all pretty seamless. It's a nice app. So then if you don't hit edit on that profile, you can also make some changes. And what happens is people forget this or they don't realize it, and they look for something like record type. For instance, see page layouts. We can manage page layouts if you do not hit edit. But if you hit edit, you won't get those options. Same thing with field level security down here, which is another security setting, but it's always a profile setting. It's always on the profile. You do not hit edit to change it. If you don't know to not hit edit, you'll go crazy trying to figure out why you can't change it in edit. The most important one that I find people miss is the record type settings. You know, where do you add record type settings? Well, you do it here. You don't hit edit on the profile. And if you don't understand record types, you're really missing out on truly powerful functionality. So you can make very slick, effective, streamlined applications that are laser focused on the process that they're working on. And we'll talk more about those later. Then down at the very bottom, you've got login hours and IP ranges. Login hours, think like a call center situation where you're going to choose the login hours that the user is allowed to log in. And then IP ranges, you can specify that users are only allowed to log in from a certain IP. That would be login ranges. So think kind of call center stuff there. The rest of the stuff you don't need to know for the exams. Some of those are new anyway. So that said, why don't we do a test question? This will be our first test question. Whoops. Here we go. What I'm pulling up here is the Winter 19 study guide. The reason I'm using this is because they used to have test questions on them, where the new one doesn't. They want you to pay the $20 for their test. So this is just the Winter 19 version. This is what the study guide used to look like up until fairly recently. It's all pretty much the same stuff. It's just a different format. Here's our outline. And then at the bottom here, we have a few test questions. And I'll go over quite a few test questions in this class just to give you my take on how I go about looking at Salesforce exam questions. The first thing that you always never want to do is look at the answers. Do not look at the answers. So they will try and trick you. They use what I call 50-50 questions, where they'll have two sets of terms that are similar. They'll do the flip-flop thing where they'll have two terms reversed. They use the idea of primacy and recency. Does everybody know what that is? If you think about like a rock concert, do you want to go first or last if you're performing?
Last.
Why?
Because that's what they're going to remember more.
That's recency. The idea of recency. The most recent will be the most effective at delivering the message. If you can't be last, where do you want to be?
First.
First. Because that's the second most memorable one. So they'll use that to their advantage. They'll put the wrong answer in the fourth spot. Or you know what I mean? They're very malicious about it. So I gamify them back. If they're, you know, nobody's ever going to ask you answer 60 questions in, you know, 120 minutes or whatever. That's never going to be your job. And you're always going to have resources available to learn things, which you won't have on the test. Really what this is a language exam. So the next thing I'm going to tell you about these, and this is going to sound weird, don't read the question because they'll give you too much information. They'll throw terminology that doesn't really matter in there. And especially on the app builder side, they're very, very wordy. So instead of falling into their trap by reading the question and then trying to pull the answer from the answer set, what we're going to do is scan the question for the keywords and decide which concept it is they're describing. And that will be the answer. So in this number 1 here, what are our keywords? Anybody see any?
Yeah, group of
Access to
users.
custom app.
Group of users and custom application.
Disable access. Group of users, what's that make us think of?
Profiles.
Or
Access.
we still don't know, do we? But we know it's one of the two, right? So immediately when I see a group of users, my mind does this. All right, what are we talking about here? Disable access. Okay, what did I tell you about this word?
It can mean both access and permission.
So I'm immediately thinking, is this access or permission? I'm already set up for success here. There's got to be another keyword that will define it further. In this case, it's custom application. Can I manage any part of a custom application on the access side?
Yes.
You can? How?
Mm-mm.
So they, you know, they got to have access somehow, but it's cleared out either way. It doesn't matter what the access side is because I can't manage a custom application on the access side. There's no tool over here to do that for me. What about over here?
Yes, you can.
Profile, right? What's the first thing you can change if you do hit edit? App settings, right? That's what they're talking about. So what's the answer going to be?
Profiles.
Yep. Now I'll look at the answer set. I think this is the answer, but I'm going to continue on because Salesforce has what they call the best answer. So there might be another answer that works that fits better than this one. So I'm going to look. Profiles, sharing rules. Sharing rules are on the access side. Have you ever heard me say web tab?
No.
Page layouts are on the profile if you don't hit edit, but can I manage an application from a page layout?
Mm-mm.
No.
So the answer is A. I will warn you, if you go and you try to memorize a bunch of test questions from flashcards, which is what everybody does, if you go and you get a question dump and you start memorizing the answers to these questions, what you will do is you will go in, you'll take the exam, and you'll promptly fail. Because these cards are made by some other schmuck. You don't know them from Adam. They just made a Quizlet. Anybody can make a Quizlet. So not only that, you're learning all the wrong terminology. So what we will do instead is we're going to be able to go through the entire study guide, understand every term and concept on it, and then use the test as a way to gather information to meet the requirements of the question with the study guide, the concepts in the study guide. This is exactly what you would do if you were a consultant. Because what are requirements? You know, raw requirements. What are they? Aren't they just word problems? So if you do it this way, if you have this system of managing these questions to where you're not reading the question, you're scanning it, finding the keywords, and then applying the proper functionality to it, that's valuable. Memorizing a bunch of test questions is not valuable to you or anybody else. There are a billion people out there certified because they cheated. if you were a CTO or something and you were hiring, what would you ask them to demo? It's like, oh, you got 15 certs. That's great. What are you going to have them demo?
Security.
Security. Absolutely. Because that's where the rubber meets the road. I don't care how many certifications you've got. Number one, have you worked a project? Can I see it? Number two, demo security for me. Or another good one might be demo standard functionality. How would you demo standard functionality if you were asked?
All of the out-of-the-box solutions like process automation, process builders, flows, and custom permissions, sharing rules, all of these stuff.
I mean, if it was me, I'd use schema. 7 main standard objects: campaigns, leads, accounts, contacts, ops, cases, knowledge, solutions. And in that, you can explain quite a bit. I mean, that's the backbone of any company, is going to be that sales process. And they understand that, generally speaking, from a high level. If you start going in and talking about the process builder at that point, it's going to go right over the top of their head. I know, because I deal with these folks. They don't get it. Right? So keep it simple. What I like to do is I record myself demoing. And then I watch the recordings of myself demoing to myself. And you do it over and over and over until you get better at it. Because the demo is everything. If I can demo and you can't, and you're the smartest person in the world, and I'm just myself, I'm going to take all the work in the world from you. You have to be able to demo this stuff. So start practicing now if you're not already doing a lot of demos. Especially if you're going to be job hunting. Start demoing now. You know, when we're done with this class, you'll have an app that you built from scratch you can pull out and show them that obviously isn't Trailhead. So, you know, you can just pull out your phone and be like, hey, check out this app I built. Just trying to set you up for success here. So,
Ryan, why do you think so many people are resistant to doing that? I mean, that's been my number one topic that I write about more than anything else. And
what's that?
demoing your work and bringing your work to the interview. I don't know why it seems so far-fetched for people to do that. So I'm interested in hearing what your opinion is on why people, you know, I have people that are college grads or newly certified admins or whatever reach out to me wanting my help to help them find something. And my number one topic of discussion is building some custom apps and being able to just showcase those during the interview.
Sure. Better yet, if you're going to go in for an interview, why not build something in a dev org that matches their business process as you see it?
Right.
It's like, hey, you know, I don't know everything about your process, but I threw this together in the last couple of days just to kind of show you what I think it is that you do.
Right. Exactly. And I think people try to be perfect in what they do in the demo, and it, you know, as long as some of it's correct and if it's in the right ballpark, that's good enough.
And it's something that most people aren't doing.
Yeah.
It requires time and attention, Chris. You know how that works, right?
Yeah.
People don't like to work, generally. Me included. And my dad always used to say, if it was fun, they wouldn't pay you for it. You'd be paying them. So once again, we got our app settings, object settings, system permissions. Or no, that's tab, sorry. Tab settings, system permissions, object permissions, desktop integration client, password policies, session settings. And then if I do hit edit, what were they again? If I do hit edit on the profile, page layouts, record types, and field level security. And then also login hours and IP ranges. They're the related list at the bottom. You think maybe this is on the exam?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta understand profiles for the admin especially. They're very, very, because you can see it's pretty important. So now I have a question. Let's say, you guys know what a cube farm is? I haven't been in one in years. Not personally. They're the little cubicles with people in them at the office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one of these is a person. And let's say they all have the custom sales profile. What does that mean?
They all share the same access.
They all share the same what?
Access and permissions.
Not access. Access is over here.
Right, permissions then.
Yes. Salesforce will call it access, but it isn't. It's a grouping of permissions, is it not? That gets assigned to a user.
Mm-hmm.
So if they all have the same profile and they all have the same permissions, are they going to see the same records?
Yes, they can.
They can?
Yes, they can.
No, because they don't own the account, right?
Well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
If they own the record, they'll have what?
Full access.
If OWDs are set to private and they don't own the record, what will they see?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, it depends upon the.
So it doesn't change
access.
their access side, does it? It's just the permissions.
Right.
So they might all, if OWDs are set to private and there's no other sharing going on, then they're only going to see the records that they own, and that's it. Which is optimal, because you can end up with what I call a needle in a haystack situation, where, you know, if you've got 50 states, you got a person in California and a person in Ohio, do they really care about each other's customers? Probably not. So I would tighten it all the way down and just give them access to the records they need. The profile says they'll all be able to see and do the same things with the records that they have access to. So knowing what we know now, if this one person down here is Joe, and I want to make Joe a rock star and give him reporting functionality and dashboard functionality when everybody else doesn't have it, what would I have to do?
Create a new profile.
Well, we could. So we could create a new profile here and assign that to Joe. But do you think it's better to have one or more profiles?
One.
It's better to
One.
have as close to, well, you're never going to have just one because they're standard profiles.
Mm-hmm.
But you're always better off to have less than more. So the best practice here is we use something called a permission set for this. And what happens here is that we create a permission set, which is just a grouping of permissions, and then we assign it to the user on the user detail record. Not to the profile, we assign it to the user. So what happens here is they get whatever is available on the profile, plus whatever their permission sets have been assigned to that user. So basically, as we move through the plunge here, right here, I'm going to have one profile, right? And everybody has the same profile. Custom sales, let's call it. So as we move through this plunge, people are going to be contacting in need of access or permission. How am I going to give permissions? If I change the profile, what happens?
Changes everybody's.
Everybody gets it. So I'll add permission sets when they call. I'm going to give every user the sets that they need. And then eventually we'll come back out the other end and we'll be back to production. And hopefully it'll, you know, get asymptotic after that as far as production, because we're going to streamline a lot of our processes, so forth and so on.
So Ryan, if we have 16 different sales folks here in your cube example,
Yep.
let's just say 5 of them need access to reports, and then another 5 need access to a dashboard or something, another object, right?
Mhm. Yep.
You just want to manage separate permission sets for each of these users.
If I can.
Well, isn't there a point where it's easier to create another profile?
Sure. If you've got 500 here, and 500 here, these guys need it, these guys don't, I'll just create another profile.
Right.
Who here has gone into an org as a consultant or a new organization and seen the organization with like 900 profiles? Anybody seen that? They're a mess. They just keep creating new profiles every time they want to do something. But the best practice across the board, I mean, if you can manage it all the way down to the individual user level, then you should. If you have the time to actively manage to that depth, by all means. The real question ends up being, did it work? I mean, when it's all said and done, does the thing work? I'm just trying to give you best practices to ensure that you're not creating a bunch of stuff that isn't going to get used. When you see it with our profile, I just basically turned everything off. Now, it's important to note when you create a new profile, you always have to clone one. You can't just create a new profile from scratch. It will ask you to clone one. We have standard profiles and we have custom profiles. Usually what people do is they clone a standard and then they create a custom profile out of that standard. There was already a custom profile called custom sales that they created before I got here. So they cloned some other standard profile, which a lot of these are, and they made this custom sales. So I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to make sure that Joe, I can't remember if we did this in the last class or not. I want to make sure that he can't do anything with reports or dashboards. So I'm going to hit edit here, and it's not just him, the whole profile. So I'll hit edit. And then I'm just going to control F and I'm going to look for report, singular. I don't know why this is it not looking at this page? Weird. There it is. It's just taking a while. And what I'm going to do is just come down here. I'm going to uncheck everything on the profile that has anything to do with reports. I guess we already did that. And then the same thing with dashboards. You guys can do the same if you haven't already. Yeah, I think I already. So I removed the ability to do anything with reports or dashboards, and they're also hidden. The tabs are hidden as well. So if I log in as Joe, Joe will not have any functionality as far as reports and dashboards.
And Ryan, just to be clear, you did that on the profile, on the whole profile. So if there was multiple users using that profile, all those users would not have access to what you just restricted, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
There it is. There's no reports or dashboards. If I go to the app launcher, you can't see it. Why do I have so few tabs down here?
Because you hit them.
Ah, where'd I hide them at?
Back in the user profile.
On the custom sales profile, went down to the tab settings, and what did I set them to?
Tab hidden.
Tab hidden for everything but these, right?
Yes.
Good. So now I'm going to log back out now that I know that Joe doesn't have any of that function, or that profile does not have any of that functionality. but now I want Joe to have it.
So we have to create permission sets.
I'm going to create a permission set called reports and dashboard permissions. So we'll go to setup. Permission sets right here under users. And then I'm going to select new. Now the problem here is that this is the old version of the user interface for the profile. They called it the enhanced something or other. The problem is it doesn't look the same as the profile, but it acts the same as the profile, and you just got to get used to it. It's important to note down here under license, you always want to use the license that you're working with for that set, because if you leave it none, you'll have very reduced functionality. That means if you put none down there, it means it's for all of them, but it's only going to have functionality of the least functional license. So you always want to choose the Salesforce license here, or whatever permission set license you're looking for. Save. So now what I do in my mind here is I think, all right, if we think about the profile, if I do hit edit, what can I change? App settings. Well, do I need to worry about the app at all?
No.
No. What about tabs? Are there any tabs I'm going to need to add?
No.
Yeah, there is, because reports and dashboards are both hidden right now for that profile.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to need to turn them for reports and dashboards. What are we going to set them to?
Default on.
Default on. Okay. So then for our system permissions, we're going to need some of those too, right? So I'm going to have to add all those system permissions, our general user administrator permissions. Those are going to be located down here. See them? So I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to go to my tabs first. Tabs are located here under object settings. And this is kind of a weird interface here. So I'm going to go to my object of interest. In first case, it's going to be reports. Alphabetical, Ryan. Here we go. Reports. And then I'm going to select edit, hiding in the middle of the screen here. And you've got you got two check boxes. Why they did it this way, I'll never know. But if available and visible are checked, that means default on. If it's available but not visible, that's default off, and that's tab hidden. In this case, we want it default on. So I'm going to check both and save. Now, instead of going all the way back to the beginning, I'm going to use this little drop down that you're going to see in the center of the screen and go from reports to dashboards and do the same thing right here. I'm going to select edit, and once again, I'll check both boxes because we want it to be default on. So if I just leave this permission set as is and don't make any other changes, what would you expect to see as Joe? Well, first I got to assign it to him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Joe's user detail record, click on his name, do not hit edit, and scroll down, and there's this permission set assignments related list here. Hit edit assignments, and I'm just going to add our reports and dashboards permission set to Joe's user detail record, just like that.
So Ryan, I got a quick question. Why do you have to set a brand new permission set? Is there nothing in the user setup where I can just add that permission right from there? I have to always create a new permission set?
Usually the way this works is I set up, this is kind of a small scoped permission set here. Usually what I do is I have permission sets that are designed for the department that they're in.
Oh, I see. I see. Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm just getting real granular here, right? But now it's assigned to his user detail record. So right now, he's going to get his profile settings of hidden tabs, but his permission set has default on for reports and dashboards. What are we missing in the set though, so far that we already talked about? All I've created now are tab settings. We don't have any system permissions at all in this permission set. So what will happen is if I log in as Joe, he'll see the tabs, but he's going to get an insufficient privileges error. Ports tab still didn't come up for some reason. But reports didn't show up at all. Hang on a minute. Usually, they'll have the tab, but no permissions, so they get an insufficient privileges error. Because you've got the tab and nothing else. Not quite sure what's going on here. Oh. What's the problem? Man, I think it's just so slow that, let's see. Oh, I guess I didn't turn that one default on. And then dashboards was on. No, it wasn't. I must not have saved it or something. Or no, that's on the profile. What am I doing? Yeah, I want those hidden. That's on the profile. I want to do it on the set. So let's see what I've got. Maybe I didn't hit save on reports or something. Go back into the permission set. Go back to my object permissions. Find reports. I think maybe because Lightning operates a little different than Classic. So it might no longer spit that error out in Lightning for some reason. Let's see. Reports. So we turn the tab on. Okay, reports tab is on. Dashboards tab is on. Hi, Bear. My dog made an appearance. Okay, that's on as well. So what I need to do now is, you can go back to, well, actually I want to go back to the beginning and do my system permissions. So the check boxes. Could have just come here and started over. Just clicked on that. But at the very bottom, you'll see the system permissions. And these are all the checkboxes on the profile. So I'm just going to Control F with report singular, select editor. It work for you. You won't be able to check the boxes. Here we go. Control F and report. Now, they probably wouldn't need all of these, but to make this easy for everyone, just check everything that has to do with reports. They would probably get much less, not near as many of these permissions, but I'm just trying to make it very easy. On the overview pages in help and training, they tell you which permissions you need for the said functionality, so you can use that to your advantage when you're developing out there. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing for Dash. I wouldn't click this one. There were issues with this at one point. Don't click that access community view, but everything else with dashboards you can click. Once again, you might not really need all of these, but okay. Confirming the changes. It's kind of a nice view they came up with recently. Okay, so now the set is actually completed. We've already assigned it to Joe's user record. So if I log in as Joe now, he should have reports and dashboard functionality. That wasn't the slickest demo I've ever done. Does anybody have any questions? Did I confuse anybody there? Why didn't everybody give this a try if you haven't? Go ahead and do a little hands-on here. So create your permission set called reports and dashboard permissions. Turn your tabs on for reports and dashboards and add your system permissions. Don't forget to assign it to your user detail record. You just give me a yes when you're finished. For those of us that weren't here when I mentioned it in chat, I'm putting a link to my YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to it, all of the previous recordings are on there, and I'll be putting all of these classes there as well. Feel free to share with your friends that might need to upskill during this time. Anybody need any help? Who needs more time? Anybody need more time?
I do. This is Chris.
Okay, take your time. So nice to not be under like the gun as far as time. When I teach this class professionally, it's usually 40-hour class. So depending on how many questions I get, because I hate to read PowerPoints to people. Sometimes I'm forced to, but if you're not reading PowerPoints to people, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what you're going to cover at the exact moment of time. And a lot of times they put way too much in the curriculum. It's not even remote. People tend to create classes based on their own experience. So it tends to have a lot of stuff in it that isn't necessarily pertinent to the situation. I'm just trying to get you guys to tread water.
Where's the tab settings and system permissions for the permission set?
If you go into the permission set, you'll go to object settings. It's in the top grouping up there. Or object permissions, whatever they are, something object related. It's like second one from the top. Let me show you. So if I go to the permission set,
Okay.
right here, object settings.
Oh, I didn't have that. I don't have that.
Is this Chris?
Yeah.
Here, why don't you share your screen? I'll stop sharing and then you can share using that big share button.
Can you see it, Ryan?
Oh, anybody see the problem? Gold star if you get it.
Is this the right license?
He's on this. It's
He's in the wrong license. You see that?
license, yeah.
Yes.
So I don't think you can.
Salesforce.
I don't think you can change that. I think you have to delete it and start over.
Yeah.
So just go to permission sets and then delete that one. Oh, you've got it assigned to Joe, so you have to go to Joe's user detail record and remove the permission set from Joe's record. This is a good case study. Now you can go back to the permission sets and delete the set and start over. Reports and dashboards. License needs to be Salesforce. There you go. Now we need our tabs, so you need to go to the object settings on the next screen. Find your object of interest, so the reports. Then hit the little edit button in the center of the screen, and you're going to check both boxes. Okay, so I think you only had the tab, right? You just did the tabs. So you also need to give them the system permissions. So go back to your set, and in the very bottom of the permission set, so from this screen, the very last system permissions down there, that's why I call them system permissions. General user administrative. So then you can hit the edit button in the middle of the screen and then Control F report, and then anything with dashboards. There you go. Now you should be able to test it. Put on your Joe goggles. See if it worked. So Knock, that's correct. So what we did is we created a very restricted profile to where it was restricted almost to a fault. And then I'm giving additional permissions to the user as needed. So what I'm trying to do is protect the profile from having too many permissions. I want it to have the absolute minimum permissions. And then as we move through the plunge, I'm adding permissions to the user instead of the profile. And in this case, we are giving them permission to see reports and use the reporting and dashboarding functionality when their profile did not allow it. Because the alternative is to create another profile, to clone one and create a new one. But we really want to keep the profiles to as few as possible as a rule. Anybody else have any questions? Let's see.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm trying to edit this, the permission set I just created. And then when I click on edit, and then it says, let me see.
Here, why don't you share? I'll stop my share.
Okay.
And then you can share.
Was there a dashboard tab as well?
Yes.
I didn't get that. So I must have. Okay.
So do reports and then go up to the little drop down and change it from reports to dashboards and just check the two boxes. Save. All right, what were you, let me see what you were trying to do.
So I create this reports and dashboards.
Okay.
And then
let me take a look. Let me see your object permissions. Object settings. Licenses, Salesforce. Okay. See the object set. Let me see if you did your tabs.
Sorry, what?
The object settings down there. Click on object settings. I want to make sure you have your tabs. So find reports. Edit first. That gets me almost every time. See the little edit in the center of the screen hiding there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Terrible user interface. Classic was notorious for that kind of stuff. That means default on. Now where it says reports, the little drop down that says reports, change that to dashboards.
Dashboards.
So this is just the tab settings. The problem is it's not the same interface as the profile. If it looked just like the profile, it'd be easy. You know?
Yeah.
This is what the profile used to look like.
Did it?
Yep.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
I can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I had a question for the permission set licensing, the license part of it. Does it have to be the same license that we pick as Joe, the user?
Yeah. So when I create permission sets, I'm always license specific.
So if Joe is Salesforce, has a Salesforce license, the permission set has to have a Salesforce license.
Correct. Unless it's set to none.
Okay. It
If
can't
it's
be
set-
any other license.
If it's set to none, it's for all of them, but you'll have only the functionality of the most restricted license.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean?
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No problem. So then did you do your system permissions on that permission set?
Not yet.
Okay.
I just have a question here. Like, what I click on this and then showed up this error message showed up. I don't know if it will.
Well, what you were doing there was editing the list view.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I'd have to, maybe it's an old link or something they have on there.
I see.
You know what I mean? I don't know. That looks like it's kind of glitchy.
Okay. Yeah, I was just worried if it's the new permission set I created was.
No, I think it has something to do with they're not letting you change that list view.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
For some sort of reason. I don't know if it's an error or what. Okay, so let's see your system permissions. Go to reports and dashboards, permission set there. And then scroll down all the way to the bottom. You'll see the system permissions right there. And then you want to make sure that you have report. So edit in the center of the screen, Control F, and type in report, singular. Check anything with reports in it.
Whoops.
And then the same thing for DASH. All right, I think you're good. So then save that thing there. And now you should be able to log in as Joe, and you should have full functionality as far as reports and dashboards as the user. So log in as Joe, users, and then log in.
I haven't assigned it to Joe yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that was Chris that did that. Sorry.
I can do the rest. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Very good. Very good.
Very happy to help.
I didn't say anything. Google. Okay.
Have I stopped sharing the screen yet?
I'm trying. Hang on. It's being a little, it's blinking on me. There we go.
Okay.
There we are. Anybody else? Any questions before we move on? Wonder. Excellent. So these are additive, and then all of these are additive. Sharing rules down here is what we're about to cover. Let's see. Access, permission. If I own the record, what level of access do I get?
Full access.
Full. So that clears this side. I'm done over here. Then I come over here. Let's say the profile has read only, and the permission set has read and edit. What do I get over here?
Read and edit.
Yep. It's additive, right? So you get read and edit. What if I've got read only over here? Create, read, and edit, and then delete as a permission set. What do I get over here?
Read and delete.
Nope.
Read only.
Only delete.
Read only.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have access. You got permission, but no access. So you're going to be limited by your access level. Do you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if I've got full access, create, read, and edit, and then read only on the permission set? What do I get?
Full access.
Full access, what can I actually do?
VESTD.
That's the access side. What can I do on the permission side?
You said you have read only? Right?
Well, these are additive. You can never subtract permissions with a permission set. So basically you're getting read twice here. So you're going to get create, read, and edit. No delete. See that?
Yeah, I was going to say you can do everything except for delete.
Yep. You got access, but no permission on the delete side. You got to have both. Everybody see how this is kind of like a math problem? Sort of. Down here, this is what's known as the sharing rule. Key point number 1 on sharing rules. The highest level of access I can give is read write. Do you think maybe they're going to try and trick you into saying you can give full access with a sharing rule? It's guaranteed. So the highest level of access I can give with the sharing rule is read write. That's it. I can't give any higher level of access with a sharing rule. There's several ways to share. The first one I'm going to show you is an object level sharing rule. So if I go look at the role hierarchy here, let's say that the users assigned the Western sales role are going to waste some time and go to a conference. During the time they're gone, OWDs are set to private for opportunities. What's that mean?
That they will only see their records.
Yeah, they're only going to see records that they own. So while they're gone, does that mean they're going to see each other's records?
No, they cannot.
If they're assigned the same role? No, they're only going to see records that they own, or if they're in this role subordinate relationship, which they're not. They're the bottom of the pyramid. So let's say they're going to leave for a conference, and I want the folks that are assigned to the Eastern sales reps roles to be able to have access to make changes to their opportunities. What's the highest level of access I can give with a sharing rule?
Read right.
Right.
Will the role hierarchy do this for me? Is there horizontal movement through the role hierarchy?
No.
No, so I can't do it that way. They don't own the records, so they're not getting access that way. So what this does is it gives us kind of the keys to the castle as far as the role hierarchy all the way down to an individual user. So I can share this access level. Sharing rules, highest level is read write. So if I had none here, I have to come down here and get some level of access somehow, or they won't see the record in the first place. So in some cases, this is step 3. But in most cases, it's not, because they're already getting access to ownership, generally speaking, from my experience. Not every time. But we want to be able to do this. We want to be able to share. This is what I personally call a one-way share. We're sharing one way from Western to Eastern, and they're not sharing back. It's what I call a one-way share. You won't hear other people say this. This is my terminology. But I'm doing a one-way share for all opportunity records. This is an object-specific sharing rule. So I'm going to share all ops with Eastern sales. Here's how we do this. It's located the same place that OWDs is located. So we're going to go to security and sharing settings. And I find what people do is they get in here, come down to sharing settings, they see OWDs and they go, oh, that's not it. And they immediately start digging around back in the setup tree. It's really just below OWDs. All of the objects are listed below OWDs, and these are all of our object level sharing rules. I like to come up here to the top and put my object of interest here, and then I just see the object I'm looking at, and it also shows me that my internal access settings from OWD is right there on the screen. Because if it's set to public read write, do I need a sharing rule?
No, you don't.
No. So they're private, so I do need to share here. I'm going to select new down here under opportunity sharing rules. And I'm going to call this.
Right. If it was public read write, though, it would be not just to the Western or Eastern division. It'd be across everybody, right?
What does the role hierarchy do?
But rolls up.
Right, but what is, in a nutshell, what are we giving with the role hierarchy? Is it an org chart?
No.
We're sharing access, aren't we?
Yes.
So the idea being that if the org is set up to public read write, yeah, they would have access to every object across the board. But in that case, would I need to share?
No.
It doesn't make any sense to share there, because what are you sharing? Well, read write. If they've already got read write, you don't need to give them read write again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. My question, I guess, more was that if it was public read write, everyone has access to everything in that case.
That's correct. They don't have full.
Right.
They can read and edit everything, though, if they have the permissions to do so. So I'm calling this a Western to Eastern one-way share on the opportunity object here. There's a test question here. It'll be a 4-answer 2 and 2 question. What are the 2 types of sharing rules? One of them, and the most used one, is based on record ownership, which is the one we're going to do first. The other one is based on criteria going on here? It's kind of funny. Okay. Oh no. Turn off. It's like my there. Okay. The other one is based on criteria. So we could say if the industry equals technology or something with filter logic, we could share based on some criteria, field order value with filter logic, if the stage equals prospecting or whatever. For our case, we're going to base it on record ownership because we're thinking in terms of the role hierarchy here. Who do I want to share it with? Well, I want to share the role of Western with the role of Eastern. What's the highest level of access I can give? Read write. Now, it's kind of hard to test these things in a dev org because they only give you 2 active Salesforce licenses. And one of them is an admin, meaning that they have what permissions?
All permissions.
Oh, well, they don't have all of them. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but they have view all, modify all, right?
Yeah.
So what's that give them?
To modify all the objects.
Well, it gives you full access to everything. So it's really hard to test sharing rules out because one has always got full access, but that's what it looks like. So we shared Western with Eastern in a one-way share. So if everybody could, why don't you give that a try? Security controls, sharing settings, choose your object of interest. And we're going to do a one-way share between Western and Eastern with read-write access. Let me know if you need help. I'm going to run upstairs for just 1 second. I'll be back just a moment. Okay, I'm back if somebody needs help. Anybody need more time? Let's see. Okay. That's an object level sharing rule. Using your logic, if you wanted to do what I would call a two-way share, what could you do? If you wanted Western to share with Eastern, and Eastern to share with Western.
Create another rule to do the same.
We could do another rule in the opposite direction, but there is a limit to the number of sharing rules you can have per object. So if you can limit it to one rule, you should. What I'm going to do now is what's known as a two-way, well, what I call a two-way share with one rule. If I go back to the role hierarchy here and look, what we're going to do is we're going to create something called a public group. I'm basically going to group these two roles together into what we call a public group. Now that doesn't share anything. It just groups the two roles together. What I'll do is after I create the group, I'm going to share the group with itself. So that way everybody in the group has access to all the records owned by others. It's a two-way share with one rule. So step one is going to be to create a public group under users and public groups. New. And I'm going to call it where people get tripped up here is they forget this is a drop down. I'm going to take the roles of Western and the role of Eastern. I'm going to put them into the public group together, and I'm just going to hit save. So the group's been created, but now I want to share the group with itself. So I'm going to go back down to security, wherever it's hiding. I don't know why they made this so difficult down here. There we go. Sharing settings. Now the group will exist so I may share it. I'll choose opportunities here. And then I'm going to create a new rule. And I would call it Western and Eastern two-way share. What are the two types of sharing rules? Based on record owner and criteria based. Know that. That's a definite test question you're going to see. That's a free one. Two types of object level sharing rules, or two types of sharing rules based on record owner or based on criteria. So now I'm just going to share the group with itself. With what's the highest level of access you can give? Read write. So that would be a two-way share with one rule. Let's give that one a shot. Create your public group, add the roles, and then share it using an object level sharing rule with itself.
So Ryan, if I'm in Eastern and you're in Western, we both have access to the record and can both update it, correct?
So right now, I own all the records. So let's say I'm Western.
Right.
And Joe is Eastern. Joe doesn't own any records, so he doesn't have access to any. So I created the group, right? That's our public group. That doesn't share anything. It just groups them together. So I can then go and create an object level sharing rule where I share the group with itself. So now Ryan is sharing ops, read write with Joe, and vice versa. But it's important to note that they will see other users assign the same role as them as well. You get what I mean?
Right. Like my question is, if you have opportunity number one and you have ownership of it,
okay,
Joe can still
Read and
modify.
edit. Read and edit.
And when he does that, do you still own it?
Yes.
Hmm.
You're sharing access.
Right. Okay.
These are never any fun. I try to avoid them if at all possible. Another good example here would be if I've got sales and I've got marketing. So this is sales, this is marketing. We're talking about ops. Who's most likely to own records, sales or marketing?
Sales.
And if this was our role hierarchy, who's most likely to own all the records? The reps down here, right? So if the reps own the records, what level of access do they have?
Full.
And then whatever their profile allows for each object, right? Then over here, they don't own the records. OWDs are set to private. So what do they have? On the access side, OWDs are private.
Nothing, right?
They got none. So if they search for the record, what happens?
They don't get it.
They don't get it, right? So what we're doing here is we're saying, all right, we took all the reps. We can put them in a group. Oops. Actually, I would probably do it this way. Roles and subordinates. Make that a group. Make this a group. It's the highest level of access I can give. See that?
Yeah, so they wanted the ability to edit those records.
Yep.
But the sales rep still wants ownership.
Well, they're still the record owner. They're just sharing access to that. We're sharing access to the record even though they don't own it.
Right. I guess I'm just used to more of, you need to edit record here, take it over, you own it, do what you want.
Well, how many record owners can a record have?
Just one, right?
Just one. So in a case like let's say we have P&G here in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble. You might have 40 people associated with that account, right? That opportunity. They can't all own the record.
Right, but you have 40 people modifying the record? That seems...
Could be. I mean, who knows? I don't know what the requirement is.
Right.
The rule of thumb is always as restrictive as you can possibly be. So if I can restrict you from doing something, I'm going to. But in that example I just gave with sales and marketing, that's a really good one, because if I got OWD set to private, nobody can see any records, but there's no horizontal motion through the hierarchy. It's a situation where we couldn't use the previous layers to meet the objective, right? So that last resort for sharing is always a sharing rule.
Right.
Because you can see this becomes a convoluted mess, especially if the org changes hands as far as who's administering the org a couple of times. Maybe somebody knew what they were doing and then somebody didn't, and then somebody else came along who sort of knew, and next thing you know, you've got 90 million sharing rules and you got to untangle the shoestring.
Right.
You know, it's like getting the Christmas lights out. You know, it's like, oh my God, why next year I'm not throwing these things back in the box. And what do you do at the end every year? Right back in the box. Setting yourself up for failure.
Ryan, I had a question.
Yep.
In role hierarchy, the ownership goes to the manager for the record?
Well, you're not sharing ownership, but you are sharing full access.
Okay, you're not sharing ownership. Okay.
No, they still own the record.
Okay.
But so it's not as cut and dried as that. So basically how it works is this. If they own the record, they automatically have full, right? But let's say for some reason they only have read-only on the profile. It's only going to pass read-only up as far as access. So you're only giving as much permission as you have, but it's kind of hopping sides on you here. It's like, well, if you only have read-only, I'm not going to give the role more access, because their permissions are going to be decided by their profile, right? But I'm not going to allow them to do any more than what the owner of the record can do.
Okay, got it.
It's a little more complicated than I was letting on, but I just want people to generally understand. I've got 2 of these open. It's killing me. There we go. All right. I wouldn't spend, if this is your weak spot, I totally understand. You're not going to learn sharing rules in an afternoon. You're going to have to learn by doing, like in production. A lot of the curriculums I teach have these really convoluted, drawn out sharing rule examples. It's like you can't test them anyway. So you don't even know if you did it right. I avoid them as much as possible because it just becomes a problem eventually. Too many of these things, and you may as well have public read write. Questions there? Let's see, what time is it? We got 10 minutes. That's probably a good place to stop for today. Let's do some homework in the meantime. So I think now if we go back to Trailhead and we look at the security module, under developer beginner, probably didn't have to log in for this. This is actually a cool photo. I was standing on Times Square in New York, in pouring down rain. And I kind of took a selfie of myself looking up at all the lights in Times Square. Anyway, good times. That was a really
Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
It's a good photo though. It's unique.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I got to get this email now. Whoops. For some reason, I hooked this up to my Gmail account, which I never use. 615029. Okay. So if we look at developer beginner under the security module, why don't we just, I think we did just a couple. Did I assign a couple of those already? I think I did. So just finish it. You might not have everything because I haven't gone over field level security yet. But it'll give you some hands-on. Before we talk again on Thursday. I have a developer come into class on Thursday to show you a developed application that they sell. They'll be there on Thursday, so we'll have like a guest speaker of sorts. If you guys know anybody that would like to pitch Salesforce related products and services, by all means. I think it's always good to have experience as far as what's available out there. I always have some favorite apps that I bring up. But anyway, let's see here, security. Here we go. Yeah, you should be able to do most of this. This is going to be tough. If you haven't done these already, these are not easy. So be prepared to work a little bit. But it'll be well worth it in the end. So that's what I've got for you on this fine Tuesday. I hope everybody learned something today. We'll continue with our deep dive into security. On Thursday, we'll have our little demo. I have a feeling we'll be done with security by the end of next class. which is pretty good. Sometimes I spend 2 whole days of class time on security because people just are not getting it. So if you're totally lost, feel free to ping me outside of class. I'd be happy to help you if you have any further questions or issues. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
One sec, Ryan. I have a question that there's been some of these trails that I've done like a long time ago, and I'd like to revisit them. Other than creating or using a brand new or different email address, is there a way that I can redo the trailheads without?
I think at the bottom of the challenge, like on this one, I think I've passed this one. I don't think it'll let you retake the multiple choice. Like this one's multiple choice, so they don't let you do that. But the ones that are not multiple choice, where there's actually a challenge.
Because what I've done thus far is I've created a new dev org, but I'm using my same email address. And so whenever that happens, Salesforce wants to automatically link the new dev org with my existing account. And so then just like you have your point totals and number of badges earned, that's what appears on this new dev org. But I just want to be able to have a clean org and start over and do these challenges again. But you think
I
can
retake this challenge right here?
Okay, yes.
You can click on that, and then instead of doing a dev org, you can create a Trailhead playground. Either way, it doesn't matter which. I've got a bunch of them, see?
Okay, I guess that was going to be my next question is number one, how to keep track of all the different ones, and two, if it would really matter if you're using a playground or a dev org, if the purpose is just, for redoing these exercises.
I would say on paper, the playground is the way to go, but sometimes the playgrounds are glitchy in as far as getting them created. So a dev org works just the same. I did most of my Trailhead exercises in the same dev org. There are a couple of exceptions to that where you have to get a managed package from somewhere or an unmanaged package from somewhere.
Right.
And pull down a bunch of stuff. But I did most of it in a dev org. So you can do it either way.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for answering my question.
No problem. Anytime. Anybody else? Very good. Everybody have a great evening, and I'll see you all hopefully on Thursday. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel and let your friends know if somebody has been laid off. I don't care if they were a restaurant worker or a, computer programmer or a developer. I mean, send them. I want to help as many people as possible here so we can get through this together. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.